Hi everyone, my name is Xanya. I'm a communication student here at the University of New Haven, and I just heard some breaking news, so let's go interview him right now. Wait, you're joking. You're joking. Actually?
I know.
Hi.
Hey there.
I just saw the reel you posted, and wow, shocking for sure. So you're in a movie with Nicole Kidman.
I am.
How'd that happen? What happened?
I know it's sort of strange saying it out loud. I occasionally say it out loud, and I'm like, did it really happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did happen. Sort of random confluence of circumstances in the way that my life tends to operate. I obviously lived in Nashville for many years, and through sort of yeah, I mean the backstory is sort of crazy, but they were speccing some space, and we had some space on a university campus, and I sort of helped with the tour, and somebody was like, wouldn't that guy work out? And like most things in my life, I'm notoriously bad at saying no, so I just keep saying yes until I end up in regrettable circumstances, and there I was. So yes.
Did you get to meet her?
I did. I was on set, and on set sounds like I feel like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I did, and she's in a scene. She's in a couple of scenes that, I mean, you never know about these things whether they get edited out or not. But certainly sort of the main scene where I was sort of carrying the conversation in a language I don't speak. She was there, and at some point I turned around, and there she was, and I realized the magnitude of what I'd gotten myself into.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's so cool. Were you nervous to meet her, or like just shoot in general? Was this your first movie?
I was, yeah. I was horrified. So in full fairness, I do this to myself, where I put myself in situations where sort of the magnitude of. So I'll tell a little bit of the backstory, but I end up on set. There's a whole backstory there. I'm sort of completely perplexed. There's a trailer, and I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And so I had, I don't know what it was, 20 lines or so, again in the language. I'm Danish. I don't, Denmark, Holland, two different things, Danish, Dutch. But I'd memorized these, whatever, 20 lines, and I get in on set, and it sort of lights. For one, there's a million people, which completely shocked me, right? Lights and sound, and I'm sitting there, and they're sort of giving me directive. The director says, I'm going to cue the scene, I'm going to cue Nicole. At this point, I'm sort of realizing what's happening, and I turn around, and there she is, and you remember these things in life where things sort of flash before your eyes, where you're like, did this really? I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to screw this up. A million times. She's going to walk in and out of this classroom door, and somebody's finally going to be like, where'd you find this guy? And get him out of here, right? So there was that moment where I thought, I could just stand up and say, I'm so sorry, there's been a giant misunderstanding. So I've got 8 million thoughts that are running through my head. And I look down, and my hands are on this wooden table, and my hands are sweaty, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So if the scene does make it, and I'm likely sitting like this, which looks like very professorial and sophisticated, it's really to cover up the fact that I was sweating on the table. And so when they finally sort of said, go, they didn't say action, which was very perplexing to me. And I finally sort of went with it, and I'm sure I just plowed through the lines. And once I'd made it once, I was like, hey, you've done it once.
Yeah.
How bad? And so, yeah, it was mortifying.
Wait, that's really cool, though. When did you shoot for the movie?
Would have been spring of, it was before the writer's strike. Again, I speak like I'm sort of an industry insider. So it would have been, I think, spring of 24. Spring of 23. Does that sound right? So a couple of years ago.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I know. It got delayed a bunch of times, and so I've sort of secretly been monitoring on occasion.
Yeah.
When does it pop out? And then I saw the trailer, and somebody sent me the trailer, and had sort of screenshotted that there I was, so yeah.
Are you excited for the movie to come out?
Oh yeah, I mean I'm excited insofar as only so many times in life do you get to do things that are so dramatically outside of your comfort zone. I've been fortunate, I've done a bunch of them. I'm not sort of a daredevil, I don't jump out of planes, or, but I've gotten to do some incredibly I mean, if there was a lesson in any of this, I once wrote a script for Morgan Freeman, which was sort of on a crazy.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
I
So
say
you have connections.
No, I say a script. It was a 2-minute script, easy. Didn't win any. It was for commercial at a previous institution, and a sort of a roundabout crazy story there too. But it was, I think, just being willing to put yourself out there, and so. Having done it in this setting, I'm sort of excited to see it because right, anytime you sort of see yourself in we live in a life that's in many ways unpredictable, but every once in a while you sort of remember instances that happen in your life where you did something that sort of I really should know the dates on when this happened, so I'm sort of excited to see it, in part because my kids my kids are sort of very fond of holding YouTube cameras up to themselves. They all think they're going to be, I'm not saying they're not, but being YouTube stars. And so when Daddy is on the screen, of course they can't watch, I think it's PG, whatever it is, my kids are young. But we will definitely freeze frame that, so yeah.
That's really cool. And I know you said you spoke another language for your lines. How was that, and what language was it?
Oh, it was sort of disastrous. I think they had me confused at first. Whether, I mean, Dutch and Danish. The World Cup gets pretty intense. We tend not to do as well as Holland. But there's a general confusion around Dutch and Danish. And so when I found out that I was sent the lines in Dutch, and I was like, well, I don't speak Dutch, and I could have sort of folded at that point in time. But in typical me fashion, I'm sort of like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, right? Yeah. And so I called a friend of mine, Adam, dear friend from college. I said, Adam, this is going to be a strange request. It was on a Saturday, and they needed the recording, audition tape, and whatever else that we did in the living room. And my wife was very good with Ring cameras and whatever else. So it basically gave me sort of 12 hours to walk around the neighborhood. Adam was able to secure this guy online. All things happen online, that could record these lines, and that was Dutch. And so I received them, and I walked around the neighborhood with these earbuds for 12 hours straight. And so it was all quite good. I recorded it. I felt like I sounded pretty Dutch. And then at some point, somebody did call me and say, we have sort of a delicate question to ask. Are you Dutch? I said, no, I'm not Dutch, I'm Danish. That's good. Because we had all these interpreters, and they said, he sounds really good, but I'm not sure. You might have lived in Holland, but I don't think he's Dutch. And so I was assigned a dialect coach from a university that then had to sit and Zoom with me, because the Dutch make remarkable sounds that weren't in my natural repertoire. And so, it was, I think the nerves the day of, the fact that I couldn't default to like, I speak Danish, or I speak German, or whatever, something. Like, I was literally saying lines that, at that point in time, I understood the words, but I understood the words because I'd memorized them, right? And then with the accent and sort of the whole, so that only added to the challenge. That might have been the biggest accomplishment. Best foreign actor in a non-existent role in a foreign language, if there was a category for that.
Right, that's really cool.
She was lovely, I will say that. She I mean, the way in which she introduced herself, she was like, "Hi, I'm Nicole," and I was like,
she's
"Hi."
like a normal person. I mean, she is, but.
Well, of course, but you sort of, it's a weird, right? You're on set.
Yeah.
She walks up, and I'm like, "Yeah, I know who you are," and I'm Jens, and I'm sure she really had no reason to. It's not like my repertoire of movies precedes me. But she was absolutely lovely, and clearly I had less time to observe sort of her incredible performance, since I was just sweating through mine.
Yeah. Did you have a one-on-one role or a scene with her? So
I'm in the scene. Actually, I'm sitting next to the gentleman, the writer on the movie, Andrew Saborsky. He's written a bunch of very good scripts, and a very nice gentleman. And then on my, sort of at the end of the table, there is Gael, and I'm blanking on his last name, but he's Mozart in the Jungle. He's got the voice of Hector. He's remarkably famous. He was lovely. I was in hair and makeup with him. And we sort of commiserated about previous projects, and I said I was a university administrator at the time. I think that was very perplexing. But so he's there, and then there's a gentleman sitting across from me who's another Dutch teacher, and then she's in the scene. She walks in the scene behind us, as evidenced by that trailer. So no, it wasn't like I wasn't speaking directly to her. I was speaking to a table, and he was there, and she was coming in behind me, and I was told to give emotive cues, whatever exactly. I look resentful of the whole situation. So yeah, I'm definitely a pro in no time.
That's great. Well, thank you for having this story time with us. It was great for me. I'm excited to see the movie when it comes out. Do you know when it will come out?
Yeah, I think it comes out next week. I heard the dropping today. Oh, it's
on Prime?
Okay. On Prime, yeah.
Oh, I'll be watching it after this. Yes.
And so I did speak to a friend of mine who said that he'd seen some kind of pre-screening. I know I'm in the trailer. Whether they kept the scene, the whole Dutch-speaking scene, remains to be seen. But yeah, no, I'm certainly at some point in there.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a bit surreal.
Are you going to the premiere, or is that like?
So the premiere was at South by Southwest. I did think about going and sort of knocking on doors, trying to convince somebody I'm actually in there.
Be like,
Yeah, right. See me, right below the Amazon Prime sign. Didn't do that. I was otherwise obligated with university daily business. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. So there is always the off chance. A friend of mine claimed he had seen some pre-screening and hadn't seen any Dutch-speaking scenes. So maybe they decided that the Dutch-speaking scene, which is sort of a heartbreaking situation, I imagine, for people who are in the business. That your first big break. I mean, I'm okay. This wasn't my first big break. Maybe.
we'll see.
We'll see, yeah. But in case it's not, I did make it into the trailer right below the Amazon Prime sign. So that's my claim to fame. As my IMDb site, isn't it IMDb? Sounds right.
So.
Yeah, blooms.
Yeah.
And other projects come down the pipeline.
Possibly see you in more movies.
Yeah, most likely I will be in the movie sitting right over there in Maxie
Okay,
Hall.
Okay, great.
I'm never afraid. Like, I'm terrified, nervous, but that's in part so that I can be ultra prepared. But it never stops me. There's nothing worse than listening to people like, I once had this, but then, like, so what? I could have failed, and they could have said, listen, whoever this clown is, get him off the set. But then that would be kind of cool. I put myself out there, I'd memorize the lines. Like, I'm a big believer in the fact that you gotta, for all we know, we live once, right? And so be as kind, be as compassionate, and be as open to any and everything. Not sort of just, oh, I should try all these crazy things, but like things that you think, experiences that enrich you in a way that alter your perspective. And again, that's not psychedelic drugs that I'm talking about, right? But it's just sort of experiences where you are uncomfortable, but you're uncomfortable because it's not your home turf, right? And so every time you sort of, the agility and the complexity of life and the dynamics are such that if you can put yourself in a situation that discombobulate you, as uncomfortable as that is, I think that's, but put yourself in it with everything you got, right? It isn't just, oh, let me stick my toe in. I spent my early life doing that, and that doesn't take any courage because you've got a million different excuses for why you fail. If I hadn't memorized the lines and I would have failed, then I couldn't be bothered to memorize the lines. No, I memorized the lines for 12 hours and I was shaking. But so it's about the willingness to do whatever it takes to maximize whatever opportunity.
Being comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah, but to be comfortable, you're never going to be totally comfortable, right? People say that. I could have walked in and the director said, listen, he just looks too young, I wish. Or he looks too, right? Couldn't account for that. So there's always unknown variables. But the variables that you think that you can control, like showing up on time, having memorized the lines, no matter what setting that you're in. I mean, I go to meetings all the time where somebody will bring something up, and I'm like, wow, like I didn't know all the details about this.
Me right
Right?
now.
So I then go back and I read up on it to be
Yeah.
as prepared as I can be. But I think that's the commitment, right? Is that too many people sort of fail to step outside because it is daunting. But anything worth doing is daunting and difficult.
Yeah.
I think people want to encourage people who are about the business. Like, if you are who you say you are day in and day out, I don't know if it's karma, who knows, but I think people gravitate towards people who are serious, and they're serious when nobody's looking, and they do the right thing. Again, that doesn't mean a bunch of things can't go wrong, but if you're so secure in trying what you perceive at that moment to be your best and the right thing to do, then I think people rally behind that. People gravitate towards situations where these things happen, and I think it takes a little bit of uncomfortable courage, whatever the. But I think at the end of the day, it's about. I mean, it's a weird phrase, but if you're about the business, and people can trust that you're going to do. It doesn't mean you're going to succeed, but they're going to trust that you would do anything and everything to make this situation as successful as possible, then people sort of people will rally behind you, and good things do happen. Maybe that's naive, but I think that's how it's worked for me.